Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar about people photography. I'm excited to be here once again, and thank you, everyone, for coming. We are going to wait for some minutes for everyone to join us. Meanwhile, for the ones who are not familiar with the Zoom, or if you are familiar with Zoom, I wanted to let you know for this webinar, it's live right now, and you can ask all your questions. So please use the chat window. If you open the chat window, you're going to be able to ask any question you want. I will try to reply when I can during the presentation, but remember, we have a whole Q&A section at the end of this presentation where we have time to ask all the questions you want. I see some familiar names in here. Yes, yes, yes. Hi, everyone. So where are you guys from? You can write in the chat. You can say hello. Don't be shy. There's not going to be hundreds of people in this webinar. We are like among friends. Okay. We are going to have fun day. Where is this? Okay. Fun time. I want to show you a lot of things about people photography. For the ones who are here and know me, you know that I love the people photography thing is really my kind of photography. Hi, everyone here is saying hi. So this is what I want to talk to you about today. Hi, Iverem from Matlock in England. So maybe some of you are already into people photography. Maybe some of you are preparing a trip, wanting to travel somewhere in an exotic location soon. Maybe some of you just want to improve their people photography skills, whether it is to take professional photos. We're going to talk about this. I want to talk about people photography as it can be travel photography, or it can be professional photography like weddings or family photos or anything like this. So this is really about all types of people photography. I'm going to wait a few more minutes for everyone to show up. Hello, Finn from Singapore. I think we have a lot of people from Europe and Singapore and Australia today. So say hi, Jack in Vietnam. Thank you, Jack, for the feature yesterday on Instagram. That was really nice, really kind. I wish you had picked up a different picture though, something a little bit more straight, but we can talk about that later. Hello, May from Hong Kong. Everyone is coming in slowly. We're going to wait a little bit. So how are you guys doing? Just to let you know, half an hour ago, there was a big storm happening over Hoi An. And so hopefully there's not going to be any lightning hitting around here and cutting the internet or something. We should be fine. Hello, Bernard from France. Bonjour. Have a lot of people are raising their hands. So if you just arrived and you didn't hear what I said at the beginning, open the chat window. Feel free to ask all your questions during the presentation. Introduce yourself now, but please note that there will be a specific time at the end to answer all your questions. And I am here for you today. This is live, so just ask all the questions you want. So we are going to get started. People are still coming in, but you know, it's time to go. So you guys see, if you send questions, please, send the questions in the chat window. You have the option to send to everyone, host and panelist, or to specific people. Please write your questions to everyone so everyone can see the questions. I'm going to get started. So I think everyone sees what I see here, my presentation all about people photography. Let's go. So before we start, okay, some of you know me here, some of you do not know me. So this is the plan for the presentation. I'm doing things in a messy way this afternoon. You say I don't even know it's morning or afternoon. So about me, for people who do not know me, my name is Etienne and I'm a photographer. I have been living in Hoi An in central Vietnam for over 15 years now. And I started photography as I moved here. So it's been 15 years that I'm doing this. And I started actually teaching photography. My first job as a photographer was when I launched my own business here in Hoi An and I started running photography tours. So I have been teaching photography to people for over 15 years, and I've been teaching people photography because I live in Vietnam, in central Vietnam, and A lot of the photography we do here is focused around people because it is a busy place, lots of interesting villages, lots of human activities happening around. But as you can see in this image, I'm also a commercial photographer and I shoot hotels and resorts and weddings and all types of photography. And my main interest, my main love when I do that, even when I do that, it's about people photography. So where was I? Someone is sending me an email about the link. That is fine. We send a new link. So I have been leading photography tours in Asia. After launching Hoi An Photo Tour 15 years ago, I quickly started running other photography tours in the rest of Asia, starting with Laos and been through Myanmar and Bangladesh and India and Sri Lanka and Iran and of course Vietnam. Okay, Vietnam, which is the country I live and I really love. And for since 2009, I've been traveling around Asia and teaching photography to people, but once again, focusing on people photography. And I told you, repeating myself already today, I am a commercial photographer. I am also into video now. Since the beginning of COVID, I got really into video. It's a lot of fun, really a lot of fun, mostly for people, lots of interesting things to do with people for video, but we'll focus on the photography side today. So I want to talk about the people photography. And this is something I do quite a lot. I'm a public speaker and I'm often invited to events when I talk about people photography and the ethics of people photography. How should we take photos of people for the ones who love doing that with respect, following some ethical values of our subject? And this is something we're going to talk about towards the end of this presentation. This presentation about people photography. So why people photography? Why do I love people photography? But why do I think people should have an interest? Generally, anyone into photography, I think, would be interested to take photos of people. First, because we are surrounded by people, and taking photos of people, like these photos of my two boys on the beach in Vietnam before sunrise. I took them to a fishing village for them to see. It's interesting to capture memories of your family, of your friends around. So we all take photos, we use our phones or we use our camera, but we all take photos of the people around us. We want to remember moments. We also want to remember moments when we travel, like the day that I met this man in the countryside in Iran. We didn't speak the same language and I was walking in the field. The man was keeping his sheep and he invited me to have some tea with him, and we didn't really speak, but the moment we shared together is something I really wanted to remember. I thought it was going to make a nice picture, but when I see this picture, I remember, of course, these moments. And it's the same for everyday life, whether you are invited to your friend's wedding or you're invited to a party and you have a camera with you or your phone, simply your phone, you can take photos. It is great to take photos of people. There's always good practice to do around because people are around. And for events like this, like weddings, when it's busy and everyone is okay to be photographed, it's great practice. And my interest really in people photography is people. What I love when I take photos here on my travels or in Vietnam or anywhere else is that because I want to take photos of people, I am really interested to get to know the people. I want to take the pictures, so I'm going to get close to them and I'm going to interact with them. I'm going to learn about them, but I'm going to see the way they live. I'm going to ask them questions if I can communicate with them or simply see the way they do things. This is super interesting. And if you're into traveling, meeting people where you travel, seeing the local culture, not just going to the touristy spots, is such an interesting part of the travel. And I think photography helps us to experience this even more, something I'll talk about again later. And it's the same for people photography. It helps you, I believe, to improve your photography faster, because when you take photos of people, you're taking photos of usually moving people. People are not often going to be standing and just waiting for you to take the shots. People are often busy moving around, and it will help you to learn to be faster with your camera, to be faster, to capture a moment, to compose things faster. And I think to have more meaningful images as well, because we are people. And when you see photos of people, we tend to relate to them. So let's get started. I want to give you some tips about people photography. We're going to talk mostly about composition and creativity and how we can try to look for different elements that will help us to compose images a different way. But before, I will talk a little bit about settings. And I know in my previous webinars, I was not really talking about settings much, but every time we have the questions at the end of the webinar, a lot of questions about settings and what do I use and what lens and what settings. So I decided to add this as a short part in this presentation. Let's try not to talk about settings for too long. Thanks for everyone who still joining us now. Remember that you have a chat window and you can ask all your questions anytime. If I see the questions while I'm speaking and not speaking too fast, I will try to answer your questions, but we have time at the end of the presentation. So first, talking about camera settings, for the ones who are following me, who have seen what I do, you know, I use a mirrorless camera, and this is something this slide is showing. I think we are more creative when we carry around a smaller cameras that are lighter and have something like this little flexible screen that allows us to put our arms up in the air or to shoot from down. And if you use a big DSLR, you see this man laying down on the floor here. I was on a tour here in Hoi An. You're not as flexible. If you have to look in your viewfinder, you're going to have to lay down on the floor if you want to use a low angle. I think smaller cameras help us to be faster, to be flexible. They're smaller in hands. They allow us to be more flexible on the composition, but also the bigger the camera is, the more it becomes a barrier when you take photos of people. If I'm talking to you like this, you see me, I could be taking photos of you maybe in a more discreet way like this. But if suddenly I put a big camera and a big lens in front of each other like this, and I break these interactions we were having. So it's something I usually recommend. Of course, every camera works, and the smaller the camera is, including the phone, the usually easier it is to approach the people. So this is just my opinion. Of course, I'm not going to tell you that using this camera or that lens is going to give you better photos. It depends on the type of photography that you are doing. Choice of lenses. I've done a little slide here to show you kind of the different focal length, the results these give you for people photography. So you see on the first slide, 16mm, pretty wide, the lens we usually use for landscape or architecture photography. A little bit tricky to use wider lenses like the 16, the 24 up to the 28. A little bit tricky because you have a lot of things in your frame, because you have a wider angle, a lot of things in your frame. And when it is about people photography and you start having a lot of people in your frame, it gets a little bit more difficult to organize them, to place them in your frame in a way that it will create a beautiful composition, a composition that flows, that is pleasant, easy to look at. And we're going to talk about that later when we talk about composition. When we get around 50mm, 35 and 50mm, it's kind of a focal length. People say it looks a bit like what we see with our eyes. So maybe a little bit more easy to use, instinctive. I personally use 35mm mostly for my photo, and I use 50mm for my portraits or for like other type of photography. But for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been shooting mostly 35mm, and I was before shooting with longer lenses. 85mm was actually my first lens, and for portraits, it is fantastic. You can see the 100mm lens here. You compress the background a lot, so you can see this photo of the monk. The background is quite blurry. You start compressing your backgrounds, and you'll be able to shoot things from further away. And you can see it also makes very good portraits. But there is no right or wrong here. There is no you should use this lens or you should use that one. It depends on the type of photographer you are. So it depends on the type of photography you do. And if you go and shoot wildlife photography, I will not recommend you take a wide angle lens because it could be a bit difficult for the wildlife. It depends whether you are a shy person or if you want to go to the people, if you're not scared to go to people's right in front of them and interact and take photos being close to them. So also think about the personality you have. Now, about the camera, about the settings, a lot of people come on my tour and they tell me that they're trying to shoot manual. They tell me that they met a photographer who told them to use manual, and since they've been a little bit struggling because on manual you have to get the right settings for the right exposure. If you are an experienced photographer, if you shoot very often, you become very fast using manual. But usually manual takes a bit more time. You need to adjust your settings manually to match the light available in front of you. So when you take photos of people, you're going to have to deal with your settings, and you're going to have to deal with your composition, with your light, with your moving subject, with maybe interacting with your subject, trying to connect with them and to tell a story. If you have to change your settings on top of that, it adds more steps in your process and it may slow you down. I myself use aperture mode most of the time on my camera. So the aperture mode basically lets your camera calculate automatically the shutter speed you need. So you will decide on your aperture. You can decide on your ISO or leave your ISO automatic. I'll talk about that in a second. But your camera controls the aperture automatically. Controls the shutter speed automatically. And why do I like to play with the aperture? Because I believe the aperture is quite powerful for photography. It's one of the most simple but most powerful tool your camera can give you. Your aperture controls your depth of field. And from having a more narrow depth of field like this one, so you can see at 5.6, at 5.6, my aperture was like a little bit closed down. The man is sharp here, but I have his shoulder a little bit blurry and the wall behind a little bit blurry, but still I understand, I can see detail in these things. If I use a wider aperture, and you can see here, the shallow depth of field is only, the focus is only on his eyebrow here, and everything in front, like his nose or everything behind, is very creamy, is very blurry. So you're going to be able to tell different stories simply by controlling the size of your aperture. I use a wide aperture. I'm going to focus on my subject's eye only because I want to show the eye. If I use a smaller aperture, I want to show more in the scene because I found the background interesting, or I found that the background tells story about my subject. So simply this choice of setting will help your creativity already. I believe it's one of the most powerful tools our camera is giving you, and really helps us to tell the story, like this woman holding the money before, or these two boys. I wanted to show that these two boys were twin boys, so I didn't want to blur the boy in the foreground too much. I wanted to keep him quite sharp. So I use an aperture of 8 here to try to keep him more in focus, and so you can see detail on his face. So that's one thing. If I arrive on a scene and I use aperture mode, I will decide on the aperture I want. I will decide on the depth of field I want for a scene. And then I will let my camera do the rest. So I can start focusing on the composition. But there is more you can do with your camera, with your settings, that will help you to be faster. Today, the camera that we're using, they are like little computers. There's a lot of things in this camera, a lot of electronics and calculations happening when we take photo. The camera is measuring the light and automatically calculating the exposure we need. Use this technology you have, use this little computer you have in your hand. First thing I suggest to use is the autofocus. So of course, using autofocus, but now the cameras are very, very good at tracking a moving subject. So in this particular image, the man was on the lagoon here in central Vietnam. The man was pulling the boat towards us. And because he was coming towards us, what I did is I changed to AFC, to continuous focusing mode. And I asked my camera and my lens to keep tracking the man who was walking towards me. So I move my focusing point on the man and I hold my shutter half pressed, and the lens just kept focusing the man. I just had to shoot. I didn't have to make sure my focus was in the right place and focus again and again. And it made everything slow down, and it gave me much more time to suddenly realize I don't want to crop his feet. Oh, there's something in the top right corner that I want to keep, all the little details that normally we would have missed because we were rushing to try to focus on a subject at the right time or something like this. So use this technology. There's something great that your cameras give you today as well, is eye detection. And I could not have taken a photo of this man like this without using eye detection focus. The man was carrying heavy bags in the market in Bangladesh. He was carrying these heavy bags and he was walking towards, and I saw the nice spot of light where we was going to be, and I was waiting for him to walk close to me. The eye detection just kept tracking his eye automatically. I just had to basically readjust my composition and keep shooting. I had nothing else to worry about than my composition. So this can really help you. Thank you guys for your comments about the images. The next thing I want to talk about is the auto ISO. So if you are using aperture mode on your camera, and on top of that, you're using auto ISO, then your shutter speed is automatic. Your ISO is automatic. Your shutter speed is automatic because you're in aperture mode. The only thing you have to worry about is the size of your aperture and your exposure, whether you want to make your photo darker or brighter. So it simplifies things a lot. And I always use auto ISO in aperture mode. What I can do in my camera, and what most cameras can do today, is to control a minimum shutter speed. So basically going into the menu, I'm going to tell my camera, if you use auto ISO, I want you to give me a minimum shutter speed of X or Y. And in this particular scene, I told the camera to give me a minimum shutter speed of 250th of a second. Actually, it was super sunny. So this actually didn't need to use the auto ISO, but this can really help you to when something happens really fast like this, and this woman is coming towards me and she's moving and the coal is falling, I don't have time to worry about this. I just have to focus on my composition. And this image of this mother and her daughter coming on a bicycle towards me happened because I was in aperture mode with auto ISO. I was on autofocus with continuous focus and eye detection. And using all these things, and the girl was coming, she was coming from the, so you guys are here looking, so she was coming from the left side of my frame, walking towards the right side. And I just half pressed my shutter and the camera just tracked the girl walking through. And I just had to keep shooting, not to worry about refocusing or readjusting my exposure or changing my ISO or anything like this. Tim, thank you, Tim, for joining. Always auto ISO for me with manual aperture shutter. Doesn't have minimum shutter speed. Yes, all the Sony's A7 II don't do that. I think now they have fixed it. I think the Nikon as well have fixed it because they realize it's something really, really useful. On my Fuji here, I have a little function button here that I set to go directly to auto ISO. So if I push this button, I will choose between auto ISO 1, auto ISO 2, or auto ISO 3. Auto ISO 1 is going to give me a minimum shutter speed of 1/60th of a second, which is going to be enough to freeze my handshakes. But I don't want, when it's a bit dark and I don't want the ISO to go too high. My auto ISO 2 give me a minimum shutter speed of 125th of a second, something I use in everyday photography in the market. Maybe I'm moving a little bit, of my subject is walking a little bit and I don't want them to be blurry. And my auto ISO 3 give me a shutter speed of over 250th of a second. So really, when I see kids running, things happening faster, I'm going to set to auto ISO 3. Okay, enough about settings, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Settings. Overrated. Settings are overrated. Let's talk about composition and how we can try to be creative. So this webinar, I speak a lot, guys. I need to pour myself some water. I didn't want to do a webinar. I've done webinars in the past where I teach like basics of photography and introduction to people photography. Today, I wanted to do something that goes beyond that. I wanted to do a webinar to help you try to look at things a different way. And this is something a lot of students come to me and talk about. They've been taking photos for many years, but they tend to take the same photos over and again. And it's true. And I do the same. Everyone does the same. We create our own templates when we take photos, and we tend to follow our template. We know a composition is working well. We see something, we tend to reproduce it because we know it works. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get out of these templates and try to compose new framing, to try to move things in a frame, to crop things in a different way. So how could we go beyond our classic compositions and come up with something interesting? I want to share these tips with you. Hope you enjoy them. Let me know in the comments here, right in the chat, if you have any question. I had a big coffee. I'm just blah, 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 blah. I'm going to talk nonstop if you don't interrupt me. So please do interrupt me. So what I want to tell you first, the first tip you can do for this type of photography is, as the same way these guys are pointing to you, to the other man, to look at the other man, I would like you to try to look at the light this way. So basically, you know about the light. The light is very important. The light is everything in photography. And some photographers tell you need to learn to see the light and analyze the light. And it can be a bit complicated, or we don't know really what they're talking about. So let's go simple. There is a spot of light on this man's face. I'm walking in a market in Bangladesh. This man looks like he just wakes up early morning and is just looking at me, this tourist in a market. He looks a bit grumpy, but I think he just woke up. And there's a spot of light on his face. The light is actually bouncing on the window on the building and coming back on his face. I just go and take a photo of him. I follow the light. And the way you do that is basically you try to follow the light, but you try to just ignore where the light is not. And you try to compose where the light is. So let me show you these visual examples. I'm walking around my living room and there is a very good light on the sofa on the wall. Well, I'm going to tell my wife, hey, you want me to take photos of you? She asks me sometime to take photos of her and I'm like too busy to take photos of other people. I tell her, okay, now sit on this sofa. Yeah, please. The light is very nice. So I'm going to go where the light is. And for your wedding photography, for your commercial photography, this is something great you can do. You find a good light and you will place people in the light. But you go more specific than that. I'm outside my house, late afternoon. I've been working on the computer most of the day. I see the light is nice. I want to get out. I go outside. My kids, Victor, Vincent, are playing outside. I take this picture. What do I see when I take this picture? I see one of my boy is in the light and the other is in the shade. So I'm telling myself, all right, let's get rid of the person that is in the shade. I want to focus on where the light is beautiful. And I come closer to him and I come closer to him and I try to expose for this light. And I try to take a photo of this pretty light. So basically, when you have a nice light, you know that when you have a nice light early morning, late afternoon, you get the best results in your images because you can capture all the details and the light is often colorful, gives you more warmth. So capturing that light will give you more interesting images. Interesting light gives you more interesting images. Like this man in Myanmar who was in a tea shop and there was smoke and the sun, middle of the day, was hitting on the rooftop, going through some holes. Of course, the light is very interesting here. You get these rays of light, you will get an interesting picture. So the idea, if you want to try to look at things a different way, if you want to try to be a little bit creative, is to follow where the light is. Don't think when you walk around a place, okay, I'm going to take photo of the most beautiful looking man I'm going to meet on the street. Just try to think, I'm going to take photo of the most beautiful light that I'm going to encounter today. And if I'm lucky, someone is going to walk into my light. You know, you might have very interesting results because the light is beautiful. The way I took this photo in the old town of Hoi An is very simple. I was walking on the street and I saw the light. The light was going on this building and it was going down as a diagonal line. And once the diagonal line is over in the bottom right corner, it was all in the shade. I didn't want to capture the right side of the house. It was in the shade. I wanted the left side of the house that was in the nice light. And I knew that on the left, the woman coming on the bicycle will also be in the light. So where the light is, trying to focus your composition. Where the light is, of course, you will try to fill your frame with it. So getting rid of anything that is not in the light and try to show exactly what you're telling us. Don't photograph something real dark, like this photo of the novice in Myanmar, turning on candles during festivals. So the light was on his face and the candles. And I decided to not include anything else here. So you can fill your frame with your light. But what gets really interesting, if you want to break your composition templates to go beyond, is to try to find more busy scenes when you will find different lights falling on different subjects. And it's really good practice. And sometimes it doesn't work. Like in this image, I was walking in the market in Hoi An, the light is going through the roof and I see there's a light on the first woman, bottom left corner on her face. There's a light on the woman in the middle. There's a light on the conical hat on the right. And I think this would be interesting. So I'm waiting a little bit for these people to walk in the light. And sometimes things are a little bit too small, too far away, and the composition is a bit messy, but it makes me compose a different way. You see the face of the woman in the bottom left corner. When you take photos, you usually don't place people in corners like this because the face is distorted and it doesn't look really good. And she's turning her back on me and I place her in the corner looking into the frame. It's against every rule of composition. But the light was telling me to compose like this because I wanted her in a corner and the other conical hat in the top right corner. So I had to compose this way to include the light that I wanted. Same for this image in Myanmar. Once again, a woman selling in the market, and the light was bouncing on the plate. You see the plate in the middle. The sun was bouncing on the plate, coming back on her face, and I saw this light. So I wanted to include the light that was on the table, and I wanted to include her face. And you try to fill the frame with this information and focus on where the light is. It can help you to compose things a different way and maybe to create interesting compositions to frame people in different ways, like the people walking here in Iran. There were 2 spots of light, 2 holes in the ceiling, 2 spots of light. I wait for people to walk into these spots of light. You get some interesting compositions when you do these things. Ian is asking, could you please tell us when black and white photos work best? Haha. Black and white photos work best when you think they work best. Okay, we have different tastes. We like different things. Maybe you like black and white. Maybe I like color. So first thing, it's entirely up to you. My personal case that I can share with you, I use black and white photos when I think the colors are distracting and I don't want any colors. I use black and white sometimes when the light is really boring and flat because you can push contrast more on the black and white images. When the photo is color and you push the contrast too much, the colors tend to become oversaturated and have a weird tones. So like this image, okay, I will answer to you with this image. You see this image in a market in Bangladesh. Once again, I was chasing the light. There was a good light on the man standing in the middle. I was waiting for other people to walk in the interesting light, which would make me cut them in a weird way and compose in a weird way. But this photo, the man was carrying a yellow bag and the other had a red bag and the other had a green bag. And there was some, maybe, you know how our markets in Asia, plastic bags everywhere. Colors are distracting. Then I decided to turn this image to black and white. And so you do that for your travel photography, but you do that for any type of photography. And there's a great way for you to learn photography is to take photos of people, ask them to take photos of them. And I've shot a lot of honeymoons and pre-wedding photos and wedding photos around Hoi An. It's so beautiful in Hoi An Old Town. And I find the light. I walk around with a couple. I see an interesting spot of light. I place them against the light and things are beautiful. So this is really good practice. If you want to learn to understand the light, to expose for the light, to practice with different light and people photography, I suggest you ask a couple of friends to come with you in the streets and play with these different lights, practice with it. It's definitely going to make you improve your photography. And really the light can save your life. When I work in the markets in North Vietnam, minority market, and the light is terrible, it's raining, you know, everything is muddy on the floor and it's gray and I'm wet and I'm cold and this market is so flat and boring. And I'm like, there's nothing interesting here. I'm trying to find interesting lights and it's busy with people. So I cannot be looking at hundreds of people walking around me, decide who to photograph. I just try to find a few spots where the light is interesting, simplifying the process once again. I basically stand in front of the wall that has the most interesting light. And, you know, it's not the most sexy wall that was in the market, but the light was very nice, leaking from the top like this. And I waited for someone to walk in front of this wall. Lucky for me, the man has a nice silhouette. The Hmong man with a traditional hat is wearing. So I like this picture because I'm trying to focus on where the light is. And the light was only on this door here. So I didn't want to include anything else in my shot. So this is about the light. The light is important, but we can do the same to compose original images if we think in terms of background. And these are the way I basically teach photography to people is think about your light. Where's the light from? What quality of light, the angle of light, what background do you want? It will help you to compose a different way. So if I want the sky in the background, I'm going to go lower. If I want the floor in the background, I'm going to go higher. Basic composition tips. Now I'm telling you, if you want to compose something original, try to, that's why I call this part, stick to your background. And I think this photo is a good example. I walk in the streets. Once again, in central Vietnam again, I run a lot of central Vietnam photography tours, some 3-day, very quick, intensive photography tours here. And the man is sitting on these red crates and I really love the wall behind him. But if I composed, if I included his head, I would have a lot of the fence behind him and the house, and there were more distractions. I only wanted to keep the blue wall behind him. So I basically cut the way I cut him here, which is not really a usual way of cropping people and is looking into the frame as well. So it's not really the classic composition rule here. So you're going to get interesting photos if you do these kind of things. This is the same thing here. Yes, Jack, details. Yeah, you can focus on details. The walls, the background have great details, or simply the background is more beautiful. And in this case, there were some really beautiful clouds reflecting into the lake, into this little water here behind the man. And I didn't want to have the trees. You see the reflection of the trees on top of the picture? If I aim the camera higher, I would have all these dark trees, just black trees. Yeah, and it's not interesting to have these black trees. So I decided to only keep the lake as the background. And the man was standing and it was framed really well. But then as he went down, I didn't go down with him. I didn't go down with him because I wanted to keep the background. The lake, the water as a background. So it made me compose him and frame him in an original way, in a different way. And so the goal is not for you to do that and suddenly you're going to have a great picture. You're going to do a lot of miss. I'll show you before the photo in the market. Sometimes you see some interesting light, you try something, it doesn't work, but you're learning. And I took this picture and I was like, okay, this is cool. This time it worked. This time I tried to stick to my background and it worked really well. It gave me an interesting composition and the moment is there and everything else is there. So it's about practicing, following the light, following the background, and it's going to make you break rules of composition. You see this man is not supposed to look into the frame. When you take a photo of someone, you place them on the thirds and you're supposed to have them look into the rest of the picture. Well, now I make the man look on the frame. Why? Because I wanted to keep the rifle. the gun he was carrying on his shoulder in the background to tell the story that the man was a hunter. So I had to place the gun on the opposite side. So the man naturally is on the other side and looking into the frame. So you continue, you use this interesting way of looking at light and background to break the rules of composition. And by breaking the rules of composition, your compositions are going to become more interesting. And this man will be looking into the frame, while normally you would have composed a different way following the rules. So now you do something interesting and you're like, oh, maybe I don't like this particular image, but in another situation, I remember this tip and I'll try to apply that to another situation where it is going to work. So you create new templates. You know, I told you at the beginning, we all have these templates in our heads where we compose the same kind of images because we know they work. One of the best way to break these templates and to compose completely different new images is to follow the light, follow the background, stick to them. And even though you think you're missing something, you're missing a more classical composition, stick to them. And something interesting is probably going to come out of this. Ooh, water. You guys still here with me? You guys found that interesting? Should I continue? Yeah, let's go, Jack. Yeah, thank you. So where was I? Yes. And then you combine these things. Yeah. You combine these things, you combine trying to find a good light and a good background. And exactly what happened on this image, once again, taken on a Central Vietnam workshop in the old town. I'm walking in the streets, and this was like 3 years ago. You know, the streets were really busy, lots of people. And I'm walking on the street and I see this very nice diagonal line on this very nice background, this very nice wall. And I decide to frame only including this wall. And if that means cropping that man on the cyclo halfway and having that woman here going into the corner of my image, then fine. This is what I'm going to get because I'm sticking to the light, I'm sticking to the background. But if I manage to get an interesting moment here, if I manage to get, lucky me, a cyclo on the right side and the woman on the left side and a nice space in between, the light is fantastic, the background is beautiful, I know I'm going to get an interesting picture. So this is like, you cannot lose playing this game. You know what I mean? You're trying to compose different things and it doesn't work, but you're learning new templates. And if it works, you have such a beautiful light, you have such a cool background, you know you're going to get something very potential. And as simple as a man walking and a man on a bicycle. I mean, I'm not taking photos of amazing subjects here. You know, I don't rely on my subjects to be a great model and give me the look. There's a man on the bicycle and a man walking. The man walking even doesn't look at me, turning his back, but the light is fantastic. Okay, outside the market in Mirasa in south of Sri Lanka, we're coming out of the market on the tour and I see this wall. We're about to come back to the hotel for breakfast. And I see this wall, the light is fantastic on it. There's a sign, stick no bills. I really like that. I don't really know, you know, stick no bills. Sounds cool. Yeah. I decided to take a photo of it. I wait for a few people to walk in front of the wall. Lucky me, walking guy, bicycle guy, the guy on the bicycle looks at me. I wish I had a faster shutter speed. But anyway, you have good results, yeah? Because the light is really nice and soft and yellow. The background is simple. You got clean composition. All right. Something else to talk about. So you follow the light, you follow the background, you kind of get more interesting compositions. Then there's something, another tip I want to share with you is, okay, you know how we talk a lot about the rule of thirds in photography, and it's one of the most classic rules of photography. And I do believe after 15 years of teaching photography, I believe that the rule of thirds is, you know, yeah, forget the rules. Yeah, rules are meant to be broken, yo. Yeah, you know, yeah, well, you know, you got to start somewhere. Yeah. And I've been teaching all kind of levels of photography since I started, from complete beginners to professional photographers. And you got to start somewhere. And when I have a beginner here who sticks their subject in the middle of the frame all the time because they're panicking, and I tell them, well, you know, place your subject on the thirds. It's going to help you create a more interesting balance in your image. It's going to help you make photo more dynamic, things like this. So you got to start somewhere. What I want to talk about now is how you can turn the rule of thirds and use it to create more interesting composition that flow a little bit more, that are easier to look at. And this can help you a lot when you take photos of busy scenes, when there are a lot of people in your scenes. Let me explain. Let's go. Visual explanation. All right. For the ones who are not familiar to the rule of thirds, we may have some beginners joining us. This is the rule of thirds. It's very simple. Basically, you don't stick your subject in the middle of the frame. Okay, I would more put it like this. Of course, there are many situations when you would put your subject in the middle of the frame, but we're not here for that today. Rule of thirds, put your subject along the thirds of these lines. You know, you divide your screens into 3 thirds. And if you put your subject in the intersections of these lines or along these lines, it's supposed to make your photo a little bit more dynamic. Middle placement is very static, very peaceful. Rule of third adds dynamism, which is good when you shoot dynamic subjects. And people, you know, often they move, you know, they do stuff. They are people. So they are quite dynamic. So rule of third for people, photography, I think it works really well. The next thing the rule of third tells us is our subject should be looking into the picture. And you see this photo of my son fishing on the bottom right corner. He's actually pointing to the rest of the picture, and his fishing rod is going through the diagonal towards the other side of the picture. So it's really good because it leads my eyes. My eyes go on my son first and then travel towards the right side of the image because he's actually pointing there. So it helps us to make the eyes travel through the frame. And then you want to photograph more interesting things. You try to put something on the other thirds. I call that the balanced rule of thirds. You put something on the right, you put something on the left. And you see it as visual weight. If your photo was standing, your actually rectangle photo was standing on a stick here, if all your subjects are on the right side, it would all fall on one side. Your photo would feel unbalanced. Very simple. You put something on the right, something on the left, they balance each other. And the photo maybe feels more pleasant, maybe easier to look at. When the photo is unbalanced, it may be a little bit awkward. It feels a little bit not something we expect. So it goes well with these types of subject. So once you start with the rule of thirds, you can apply the advanced balance rule of thirds. So you start placing more than one subject. And it's something I try to push people a lot when we're here on the tour is you find someone interesting, try to find something else to balance your subject. I will continue. I see we have questions. Tim, that's a big question. Please talk us through your thought process when taking a picture. Obviously, when shooting people on the street markets, we don't have a lot of time to compose the shot, think too much about the background rule of thirds. We normally only have a couple of seconds before the person moves on. Have you got the points where you apply all your theories subconsciously, or like me, do you take a lot of shit pictures to get the good ones? Yeah, I'm like you. I take a lot of shit pictures to get the good one. No, honestly, I see your point. I see your point. But it's exactly the same thing I was talking about at the beginning. Why do I use aperture mode? Why do I use auto ISO? Why do I use eye detection now? Because then I have less things to deal with when I see my subject coming. So I shoot every day. Yeah, for almost 15 years, almost every day I'm out shooting. So I become fast at doing things. I become fast at reading people, at reading the light. If I arrive in a market, I will find a very cool light here. I will my brain is going to tell me whether this is going to work or not because I'm shooting many different types of light all the time. I don't have to think about the rule of thirds. Yeah, when you take, after 6 months of even only 6 months, 3 months of taking photos all the time, thinking rule of thirds, you don't think about the rule of thirds. So I don't think about my settings so much. I walk around, my aperture is at f8 something. I know it's at f8, I focus, boom, I compose, up, I wait a little bit, and then I wait and then I move around. And I like to have this camera with a screen here. Before I was like, oh, not really. Now I can see around, okay, this is a cool shot. I think something is cool, but it's not cool enough. It's always like this, yeah? You think it's a cool shot, the light is good, you got someone here. Yeah, but it's not good enough. You can always find something better. So what I do then, I wait for a moment to happen. I will compose like this, the light is cool, and I'm kind of waiting, and there's a woman walking in front, boop, and I'm waiting. Maybe it's going to fill my frame, maybe it's going to create something interesting. But practice, Tim, practice. The more you practice, the more you don't think about rule of thirds anymore. You don't think about your settings anymore. You don't think about applying these things anymore, and you become faster. Some scenes you need to be faster. That's the thing. You don't need to be super fast with everything. There are a lot of times, and if you follow what I told you before, a lot of times if I walk in the street, let's say Hoi An market or any market, yeah, I walk in a market and it's very busy. I'm not going to spend my time scanning everyone's face to see who is the best looking person in the market. I'm going to just find these 3 interesting spots of light. And among these 3 spots of light, there's only one of them that has a clean background because I don't want plastic bags everywhere in my background. That's my spot. That's my spot. Slow down, slow down. I'm going to chill out. I'm going to walk to my spot. There's a lady having some noodle soup. I say hello, kind of walk around. I sit down, I order a tea, and I kind of hang out in front of my spot of light. So it depends on the scene. If you do street photography, everyone is in front of you. You see, bam, 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 you need to be very fast. Actually, I was on a 3-day workshop this weekend, and Sunday afternoon, on the last afternoon, we had street photography session in town, and we actually went manual focus because there were hundreds of tourists in front of us, in front of a great yellow wall, and we wanted to layer all these tourists, but the one wearing interesting clothes, the color matching, people wearing the same color dress. And here you see something, wow, you got to get it. Yeah, you got to shoot it. Even manual focus will help you. So once again, it depends on the type of photography you do. I'm talking way too much today. What if we don't have high quality camera like yours? I'm afraid we can't get the shots we want. Ian, I think a good camera will help you in a tricky situation. If it's really dark, if you have to focus on a moving subject in a dark situation, if you have to put your ISO quite high, things like this, the expensive camera will do a much better job than the cheap camera. But I spend so much time taking photos with my phone, yeah? And my phone is not, I don't have a fancy latest iPhone, yeah? I got a pretty cheap Samsung, yeah? And whatever, yeah, it takes photos, yeah? If you photograph a good light, and this is, once again, we had such a fantastic weekend last weekend. Yeah? Just finished a 3-day tour, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, epic light. We had fantastic like sunset, sunrise every single morning. And we were standing on the lagoon with the students, and I tell them, guys, take your phone. Yeah, we had light going through the cloud. The sun was setting through the cloud, the mountain, everything reflected on the water. I told the guys, take your phone out, guys, just take a picture. Yeah? You don't need the camera for that. The light is beautiful. Any camera will capture something nice because the quality of light. So once again, working on the light. Where was I? I need to start again. So balanced rule of thirds. Now, how can we compose something interesting? From the balanced rule of thirds, I put one thing on the left, one thing on the right. What if I try to add a third element in my image? What happens? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I go from my son swimming, the rock here, and the tree over there, my eye, and I try to fill my frame, very important, fill my frame with these elements. So creating a triangle, like in the market in Hoi An, I have a lot of photos of Hoi An market, spend a lot of time in there. The feet of the woman, the hat triangle, and I try to fill my frame with these things. So your people photography will become interesting, will become more interesting when you add more things in it. And this is a little bit of a, how can I say that without sounding like I'm an asshole? This is a bit of a critique to portrait photography. You know, you have a very expensive lens that has a really wide aperture, and you find some cute kid on the street and you take a nice portrait, you know, with a blurry background, and you know everyone likes a photo of a cute kid. But how many different compositions can you do with one boy and a blurry background? You can place him in different parts of your frame, but then you're quickly going to run out of ideas. If you start adding a boy and a mother and a wall and a dog in the frame, things are going to become interesting. If you think about watching a movie, it's exactly the same. If you watch a movie with one character for the whole movie, better be a good actor, yeah, to keep you entertained for 90 minutes with one character. Yeah, better be a great story and a great actor. If not, it's going to be pretty boring. You add characters in your story, you add intrigue, you add more things happening. The stories get more interesting. People photography is very the same. I believe the more people, the more things we have in our frame, the more story we tell, the more interesting the composition can be. So now I'm talking about trying to go beyond seeing one person and say, I want to take a photo of this person. I'm talking about, I want to compose something cool. So I find that person, I'm going to find something else to balance on the other thirds. Then I'm going to try to find a third thing, and I will fill my frame with it, and things will get more interesting. And it's the exercise of trying to then fill your frame with these different elements that you see, like this weird, you know, that's why I love Hoi An. Yeah? Anyway, you have a great market in the morning and you have crazy tourists in the afternoon. So much to photograph here. Crazy wedding couple posing on the wall, and tourists stop and take photos of them, and just create a triangle, filling the frame with these things. And I do exactly the same for travel photography. And you can see this is definitely a clear template of mine. Yeah, a clear template of often I take these kind of images because I'm trying to find 3 elements and fill my frame with these 3 elements. But then things get even more interesting. So you go with 3 elements, and you have heard before about the golden ratio. You know, this Fibonacci number rule circle that is supposed to make your image flow a little bit more, to be a bit easier to look at. Well, I don't think about that. Tim was asking me, when you go in the market, what do you, I don't think about golden ratio, Fibonacci number, the power of magic 3. Well, when I walk in the market, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about, oh, yeah, what aperture do I want and what do I want my subject to do? And it's, yeah, it's the Illuminati, exactly. Yeah? It's the, okay, all this thing happening, yeah? You never know. So could be the Illuminati, actually, they're controlling us, mind control. Non-linear triangle, action triangle. Yeah. Okay. So I don't really think of this number. So let's see everything I tell you about before. I'm trying to find 3 elements and I fill my frame with them. I have 1 person on the right. So now we're talking about photographing more busy scenes. But when you photograph more busy scenes, it's more busy and your composition can get busy and then messy. So I have 1 subject, I place them on the side. I have another subject, I place them in the middle, another I put on the side. I have my 3 subjects, my triangle. And if I'm lucky enough, if I try to find lines that connect these 3 different elements, like this fishing net, for example, and my eye goes from 1 subject on the side to the other in the middle, to the other on the side, then it somehow creates a golden triangle. So it's not exact science. Okay, here. Yes, Tim, I know exactly what you mean. Open your photos, guys, stick a golden ratio in it and you can like, oh yeah, there's a line here. Yeah, it's golden ratio thing. But it's not something, if you want to compose, and actually the golden ratio, I believe it is actually, it flows really well. When you see a painting, when you see a picture that follows this rule, your eyes just follow this line. It's a very natural way and peaceful way, I think, of looking at pictures. And it helps to organize messy images. So try to find lines that link to your different elements. And it doesn't have to be lines, actual lines. It's lines we can also somehow imagine, or your continuity of certain lines, like this coconut branch somehow, yeah? So 1 element, 1 more element, another element. I fill my frame with these elements, a line going from one to the other. You follow the coconuts, go to the guys, and somehow you have that goldenish ratioing thing. And Tim is right. Yeah, I mean, if you use the rule of thirds, you already have 50% chance that there's somehow a kind of golden ratio because your main character is on the thirds and you see the golden ratio, the curve, yeah, the wave thing of the golden ratio is kind of on the thirds. So you have a lot of chances to use this golden ratio. But to try to create it unconsciously, subconsciously, is not something we usually do. So I do that as well, whether it is, but it works for groups of people, but it works for close-ups or portraits, okay? You try to find different elements. When I took a portrait of this woman, I liked her earring and I wanted to take a photo of her earring. I placed her earring on the side and I tried to include the pattern as well, the texture of her clothes to show like she's a minority woman in the mountain, and the hat a little bit. And by having all these elements into my frame, and because I'm lucky and the angle of her head and the angle of her neck creates this line, there is here a golden ratio. And you know, same for my kids. I take photo of my kids on the beach and then I stick a golden ratio template on it and I say I shot a golden ratio. Yes, somehow it's kind of true, but look at the line. Look at the line. I place my boy on the thirds on the left. I place the other boy on the third on the right, and the line, the arm of my son is linking and going to the other boy. So actually it works. Yeah, it works when you try to think of placing different elements on the third, 1 on the thirds, 1 on the other thirds. There you go. Imagine a line and you have a golden ratio. So it does work, seriously. When I try to apply a balanced rule of thirds in my images and I try to find a third element to fill my frame with it, I will find a lot of my images have this golden ratio thing. And when you shoot busy scenes, they will be more pleasant, more easy to look at, usually. So it will help your composition. It will help messy compositions that to become kind of more, that flow a little bit more and easier to look at. Beautiful boy of yours. Thank you, May. Thank you very much. They've been great subjects of mine. I've been taking so many photos of them over the last year. May asking, what are the size of your tour classes? Normally, I limit the group size to 6 people. When I run a photography tour by myself, 6 people maximum. But I do invite on most of my photography tours a second photographer to join us on the tour. So when I have 2 photographers on tour, I take up to 8 people. 8 people on a tour with 2 photographers. So still very small classes, very small groups. People have to learn. We need to give people every attention. Now I'm talking so much, but shouldn't I have this coffee? Okay, you guys still here anyway? Yeah, no one's got to go anywhere, hopefully. Composition is one thing, yeah. So composition, we try to get our settings ready, then we compose, we try to work with the light, we try to work with our background, and we try to capture a moment. I see a lot of people that tend to be a little bit too focused on the photography. And, you know, it reminds me, many years ago, someone wanted to book a photography tour with me, and they sent me an email, and it became like, I always remember that. And the one of the first sentence in the email was like, the man basically was telling me that he was taking his photography very seriously. Like, he was no joke about it. He was learning a lot, you know, he was taking his photography very seriously, and I can feel there was no joking about it. Yeah. And so, and I can imagine a person like this walking in the market, focusing on I need to get a shot, you know, I'm here for my photography and I need to get a shot. And often because these people, and sometimes I'm doing the same. Sometimes I'm like on pressure. I'm in a commercial job and I need to do the same. Or sometimes I feel I put pressure on myself. I should take a nice photo today. You cannot focus too much on your settings and your composition. And when it's about people photography, sometimes I see people missing the point of people photography. And I told you at the beginning, people photography is awesome because it really helps us to go and meet the people, to connect with the people, to learn about the country we travel to, mostly for travel photography. If you want to take photos of a couple for their wedding, you're going to ask them questions about them to try to get ideas, what kind of compositions you can do with them. So now I want to show you how, if you slow down a little bit, if you tell yourself, okay, no stress, you know, I'm going to take photo of this scene, but you know, I don't have to go like right now. I'm going to stay 5 minutes and try to interact with my subject. What could happen? So like Tim said before, sometimes he was talking about the hunting or the fishing. If you do street photography, if you see something happening in front of you, you know, you're going to jump on it, capture the moment. Sometimes there's just a nice light and people going by. So, you know, you don't have to rush. You have time to work on the scene. It happens a lot to me when I arrive on the scene. I have no idea what to do. We arrive on the scene, no idea what I'm going to do. There's kind of a cool light, but right now I'm not inspired. Yeah, I'm like, whoa, it's a bit messy. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to take a seat. I'm going to go chat with someone. And so the time to talk with this person, I'm going to analyze the scene, see how the light is playing on people's faces, see how the backgrounds, the foregrounds are changing because people are moving. But I talk too much. Here's a visual example once again. I think that was a month ago, something like this. I was driving around the countryside in Hoi An, you know, taking photos every day, exploring new spots to build new photography tools, to finding new fields where they do different kind of harvest, different crops for different photo opportunities. And I meet these people who are, they're not harvesting chili, but they are plowing a field, yeah, working on a field next to a chili field. So I see this woman. This is one of the first shots I took. And here, like, I just said hello. Somehow I walk in, I say hello, and I take a photo. Yeah, okay, yeah, you know, rule of thirds, yeah, all right. Nothing spectacular. But then I don't know what to do. So I start chatting with the woman. And I chat with the woman and I ask her, like, where is the village? Or how many times they work in the field? Or what are they growing? You know, like small talks, yeah. We're not talking about politics or anything, yeah. We're talking about, hey, look, it's gonna rain today. Oh, me, I am a tourist. Look, I am from France. Okay, simple things. And then she's pointing to me that she lives there. And then I tell her I live in Hoi An, and she says, oh yeah, Hoi An is over there. And she turns around and she points behind. And you can see there are things happening. I'm not asking her like, please, can you turn around and point over there? I'm talking to her. I'm asking her about, I'm telling her where I live. I'm asking her about herself, where she lives. Tomorrow, what field are they going to be working on? Oh, is it going to rain? And if you ask people if they're going to rain, what are they going to do? They're going to turn and look at the clouds there. So you can somehow direct your subject by not telling them to do something, by talking to them about something which is in a direction where you want them to look. And so she was talking to me and there were other people behind her. And then she turned around and she looked in a different direction. and I saw that there was a man who was coming to us. So I was still taking photo. And I told you before, the great thing with this mirrorless camera is that I could be chatting to you and I could be like, okay, I'm focusing here. Or you know what? I'm going eye detection. I don't even need to worry about it. I'm going eye detection, continuous focus. I don't care. I just point here and I'm like, it's automatically focusing on your face. I can do this. I can do that. It's focuses on you. I don't have to worry about it. I'm like, oh, so what do you do? And then she turns around and she points over there. And I'm like, tatak, take 2 photos. And then, oh, so is it going to rain? And she points over there, tatak. And I'm still here. I'm still facing her, in front of her. I don't have this wall of block. Yeah. Oh, stop. I'm going to take a photo of you now. You know, it creates a block instantly. Yeah. So try to take photos of people while you're interacting with them. And you cannot believe the series, how dynamic these photos are. Yeah. Number of different compositions you will be able to create with one scene only. So we keep going. She's looking over there. Okay. I look, there's a man coming. Oh, it's her husband. Oh, is this your husband? Yeah, he's my husband. We work in the field together. Oh, okay. Well, great. The man says hello. The woman is laughing. She's like, oh, my husband is here. Oh, this foreigner speaks Vietnamese. Ah, it's fun. Yeah. I can speak a little bit Vietnamese, but I would do the same in every country I go to. I would just use my hands, use my smile, point to what they do. I will do the same thing. It would take a little bit more time, but I will do exactly the same thing. And the man talks to me and how many kids do you have? And, you know, are you married? And how old are you? And the usual. And then he's chatting to me. Of course, the woman got to get back to work. Yeah. So the man is chit-chatting with me. The woman is like, I got to finish my work. So she goes back in the background. So boom. Now it's not her on the thirds and the man in the background. Now it's the man in the foreground and her in the background. Things change. What happens next? She moves around on the other side. Boom. I switch. I still want to use the rule of thirds. I move him on the left and her on the right. I don't control that. She decided to walk away. I follow her. I keep focusing. I keep composing like this. Suddenly she comes closer to me. And she starts working again. The wind blows in her clothes and the man walks away because the man had to also, the woman was like, yeah, enough talking, now go back to work. Yeah. So he went to get back to work. And I have now change and I have the woman there. And then I try to balance to have to this symmetry of the tools, like these perpendicular lines, to have the balance her on the right and him on the left. But you can see how the situation has evolved. I didn't show up to these people and like, oh, this is a nice picture, click. And okay, see you guys, I go home. I arrive on the scene. I didn't know what to do. I started talking to them and look at what I have after all this. I spent maybe 25 minutes with them in the field, not much, but I have all these different compositions that will help me to choose between the photo I love, but who can help me to create a series of photos to tell the better story of these people. It's not, when I started the shoot, it was one woman in the field. When I finished the shoot, it was woman and husband working together in the field where the guy is a bit lazy and the woman is like, hey, you get back to work. And I knew a bit the character, they were funny and like so much. Yeah. And amazing moments. Like now I can go back to the fields. I know these people, they're going to recognize me, say hello. And, you know, I made new friends somehow. And this is also something I would call like, when you do travel photography, try to put the travel before the photography. And don't like overthink your photography. You can have a great day. Maybe today you don't take a good photo, yeah, but you're going to be sitting in his house and having a tea with this person who invited you in a house because you were lost in a village trying to take photos of people, and you were going to them. And because you want to take photos, you start interacting, you smile to them, and then they smile back to you and they invite you into the house, and you live these very powerful moments when you travel. When you do that, I've got a tear in my eye. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Anyway, you know what I mean? Low key. One of the best tips I've heard in a long time. Low key, yeah, low key. Yeah, just take it easy, yeah. Yeah, you can be serious about your photography, but chill. Just there's so much to do, yeah, and we don't take great photos every day. Sometimes we just need to have a good time with the people and we'll take a good photo tomorrow. So I talked to you about approaching the people, interacting the people, how this could maybe make your composition more interesting. Now, I know the question everyone has, yeah. So how do we do that, yeah? How do we do that? I cannot do it. I live in France. In France, people hate to be photographed. I cannot do it. I live in New York. I will get punched in the street to take photos. Many ways of doing things. Tim, approaching people is the #1 problem. People on my photo tours in Bangkok have. We are lucky in Southeast Asia. People are generally friendly. Yes, I'm the same team, same as you. People come on my photography tours here. They're a little bit, can I take photo of people? I had two Dutch guys 2 weeks ago. They're like 25 years old Dutch guys, first time in Asia. I took them into the rice field for the rice harvest. We had a great afternoon, sunset, people super friendly. And we are on the road and I talk a little bit, we have this, we're going to try this, that. So come with me, guys. And I go down, I say hello to the people, I start taking photo, and they're standing, they're looking at me and they're not doing anything. I'm like, guys, you try something. Can we really take their photo? Are they going to be okay with it? And the people we take the photo, we spent all afternoon with them. We took their photo all afternoon, show them the photo, laughing with them. A friend of mine showed up with his baby, had a grandmother holding the baby, doing selfie with it. At the end, we left them and they said, thank you to us. Thank you for coming. Come anytime you want. Yeah? Like, it depends on how you approach the people. There are many ways. If you are in the West, of course, it's a little more difficult than if you are in Southeast Asia. We have it easy for the ones of us who live in Southeast Asia. People are more friendly, more easier to approach, but you can approach people, I believe, everywhere. It takes a little bit more time. So here's my tips for you to try to approach people. First thing, interact. Don't interact by coming to people and say, can I take your picture? Okay, it's something I see also a lot. Not on the photography tour, because it's something we talk to people on the tour about how to approach people and things like this. But I'm in the market and I just see some random people, like they're walking in the market, take photos, and the people are like, oh, hello, can I take your photo? And the woman is nice. Yeah, she says yes. And what does she do? She does, and then this person maybe has, after 3 days in Hoi An, has 100 photos of people doing this to the camera. And how exciting is this? I mean, 1 time is fun, 2 times is fun, 3 times gets a bit redundant, 4 times maybe we should stop. Yeah. So then you get always the same type of, it's not moments, it's just people smiling at the camera. It's fine to take photos like this, of course, but what I feel is missing in this type of images is the story. So you kind of, this woman, she has an amazing story and she's selling these things in the market, but you just change her, you're just showing to her, oh, she's just smiling for the photographer. And you dumped all her story at the trash. Yeah, there's nothing from actual her you're trying to show us. So interact. One way to interact and not directly come and say, oh, hello, can I take your photo, is to show interest in the people. And it's very silly, but in the market, what I do, I see people selling stuff in the market. I come to them, I say, what are you selling? I can see what they're selling, but I come, oh, what is this? Oh, it's garlic. Oh, yeah, I know garlic. Yeah. Oh, it's good. You start showing interest. When you show interest to people who are doing something, they understand that you're not here to take photo of them. And if you say, oh, hello, can I take your photo? Because, you got so many wrinkles. And the woman is like, well, I don't want you to take photo of my wrinkles. I look ugly and old. No. Oh, your garlic looks very nice. Yeah, I would like to take a photo of garlic because in my country, we don't have garlic. I don't know where this garlic. I want to take photo of the garlic, please, madam. And so you explain people what you're doing here. Like, oh, I'm a tourist. Oh, in my country, we don't have these kind of things. Oh, this is super nice. And you smile to people, show interest in what they're doing. And I understand you have a camera around your neck. You're a tourist if you're traveling and it's not your own country. If you're in your own country and you walk in the street, you have a camera around your neck. You're not just a random dodgy person taking a photo. No, you're a photographer. People come, oh, you take my photo. Yeah, I'm a photographer. There's a great light on this wall here. I'm just waiting for people to walk by. I'm not taking a photo of you, mister. I'm taking a photo of this light. You just happen to walk in front of me. Look, it's a great photo. If you want, I can email it to you. Boom, you made a new friend. People are very easy, actually. I think most people are scared of what could happen, but it's not often. Like myself, rarely, almost never happen. And all the people I talk to, really almost never happens. And people are actually telling them something like, hey, you taking my photo? We're just scared that this thing happens. So explain to people what you do and try to connect with the people, either because people are from your own country and you're walking in your own streets and you explain them and you send them their picture and you tell them that you're working on a story of people in the neighborhood and people understand what you do and you can make new friends. And when you're traveling, this photography thing, you go to the people, you want to take the picture, and then you're going to show them the picture. And, it's really cute, like this picture, you know, the grandmother, you show her the picture, you tell her she's beautiful, she's laughing. You get these kind of reactions all the time, but you're going to connect with the people. And once again, you slow down, you meet the people. And how many times it happened to me that I was in a scene and I took a photo and I was like, yeah, this is great. Oh, I'm so happy with the photo. It's great. I'm like, you know, I can go home now. I'm going to put it on Lightroom and I'm going to look at it on the big screen and be excited about it. But then I hang out with the people. Oh, okay, have some tea. And then I stick around and they tell me, and then I see the light is changing and I see the grandson is coming. And then the grandma was waking up. And suddenly I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing now. There's something that changed because I stayed more time. So I got to understand a bit the family, and I got to understand where the light is going to move against what wall. So my composition can only improve because I'm spending more time with my subject and I'm spending more time in the scene where I am. And at the end, have fun. And when we do travel photography, it's a very easy thing to do. Have fun with your subject, start fooling around. Something we do a lot here on the tour, seriously. We arrive in the middle of a village in Bangladesh or in India, in the middle of nowhere in India, and people don't really see many tourists there. So everyone comes and like, oh, look at the tourists outside, you know, you see all the heads picking up. The kids, always the first ones to come to see us, you know, like, oh. And we started acting like clowns a bit. Well, we start having fun with the kids, and then we put the camera down and we play football with the kids, and everyone comes out, oh, these people are like normal people. Oh, it's cool, yeah. They're playing football with the kids, they look fun. And then you have fun with it, and then you don't pick up the camera anymore because you want to win the game against the kids. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Your travel experiences get better, but then people come out and people are not shy anymore. And then you can approach people more easily. And because you were hanging out here for a little bit of time, you see how the light is playing on this wall, on that wall, and you can think about your composition. Slow it down. Slow photography, I'm going to call that. Really fresh tea. Yeah, Sri Lanka, of course, very good tea. Very good tea. Bernard, you have to leave. Thank you for joining until now. Thank you very much. We're getting to the end. I know, guys, it's a bit long. I speak too much today. One more thing to finish with these creative tips and approaching people before I want to tell you about something. Be ethical. Be ethical. And by being ethical, I don't have the list of things for you to follow to be ethical. Okay, at the end, your version of ethics, your value of ethics is different than mine. I think at the end, you have to be okay with what you do. And if you took a photo of someone and you feel that we're not happy and you feel bad about that, you know, you're doing it the wrong way. Yeah? So you have to take photos of people and you have to feel good about it. I take photos of people all the time, but if I feel bad about it, if I feel that people don't want to be photographed, I don't want to photograph them because it's going to be stressful. It's not going to be interesting. They're not going to be happy. And at the end, because I will not really work on my composition, I'm going to, oh, these people, clack, okay, sorry, goodbye. I'm going to take a quick photo and walk away. So no time really to work on the composition here. So be ethical, trying to respect the people. Don't take photos of people who don't want to be photographed. Of course, very basic thing. Respect your subject and be aware of their reactions. Just be aware of their reactions. Look around. If this is a new country you go to, if you travel to a place which is not your country, look at the way people behave among each other. When you walk around the street and you take photos, look at people's reactions. Do people take photos of each other? This is something I see a lot. When you arrive in Bangladesh, everyone come to me, selfie, selfie, selfie. People stick my cameras in my face to take my photo. I'm like, okay, so I think they don't mind being photographed here. I go to Iran. All right. We're not going to run around the street, take photo of everyone we see like this. A bit more different etiquettes, different attitude to have in the street. So very important, culturally speaking, to study where you are and to see the way people act in the street and just to be good about it. If you ask yourself this question, you're going the right way, basically. If you don't care about ethics, you don't care about people, then maybe you don't have much ethics and it's not something for you. If you ask yourself this question, how could I approach people in a better way to be respectful? Then you will work on it. You will try to make it happen in a more respectful way. So you're doing things the right way. And really, this kind of slow photography thing is something I've been doing much more in the recent years. Mostly when COVID started, went a little bit more slow, maybe because I'm also growing up. I'm a bit less like sticking my camera in people's faces. I slow down, I step back, but I realized this actually gave me better photos because I was hanging out a little bit more with the people and allowed me to compose different things. And by applying what we talked about before, following the light, following the background, trying to break my usual composition techniques, I could really make my photography different and evolve over the year, I believe, which is something I try to do, not trying to take the same photos all the time. Ooh, I really need to drink. Been speaking too much. What do we have here? You speak with substance and the French accent is the best. Thank you, Mary. Tim, plus if you're walking around chatting to people without a camera, you look a bit weird. Camera gives you a reason for being there. Exactly. Camera is like your passport. Yeah, your passport for going into people's villages. I walk around, I drive my motorbike around Vietnam. I walk around people's villages. They look at me. Oh, what's this guy doing? He's got a car. Oh, he's a tourist. Oh, fine. Just leave the tourist go. Yeah, he's a tourist.